Chaunte Lowe is the story of determination, perseverance, and strength.
Resilience is a muscle that has to be worked out each and every day.
Today, she will share her stories of beating impossible odds time and time again.
Olympic athletes are known for their dedication and their grit, but high jumper Chaunte Lowe goes way beyond that.
That's right. We've been following her story the last few years through some incredibly difficult moments, including surviving cancer.
You fought cancer, you beat it. You fought COVID, you beat it. You have this fight now that's ingrained in you that so many people don't have.
You have to be bold enough to acknowledge the accomplishments that you have made and rewrite your story as a success story. This is Chaunte Lowe, 4-time Olympian and the American record holder in the women's high jump.
Lowe is a 4-time Olympian, 3-time world championship medalist, and 12-time U.S. national champion.
It's like we watch the Olympics for stories of inspiration, but Chaunte's story already inspired us. She didn't have to go to the Olympics.
Yes,
so
amazing.
I am about to take the stage in the Doing the Impossible series here in Orlando, Florida. And I cannot wait to share all of the tactics and skills that I have acquired over 16 years as a professional athlete, competing in 4 Olympic Games across 3 continents.
Please welcome the incredible Chaunte Lowe.
Now, this is a fun group. You guys know how to party, huh? Wait, how are you guys doing today? I'm gonna be talking to you guys all about boundless resilience and how to build it one step at a time. Now, one of the reasons why I was excited to be here today is because many people know me as the high jumper, you know, the one with the 6-pack abs. I know a couple of you guys Googled me. My American record is 6 feet 8 3/4 inches. And I'm just gonna answer your burning question right now. Yes, I can jump over LeBron James's head. There's only one way to guarantee that you will fail at something, and that is quitting before you reach the finish line. Whether you volunteered, purchased a ticket, or were voluntold that you get to be here, you decided to come and be a part of doing the impossible. In 2018, I found an itsy bitsy rice-sized lump. That lump turned out to be breast cancer. It was the most difficult situation of my life. I had to have a double mastectomy and chemotherapy. But one thing that you notice in this picture, I have a smile on my face. And the muscles that I developed for resilience in that time period allowed me to fight for my life. When you go through the most difficult times of your life, you realize that you are strong because you are practicing that resilience day in and day out. Each and every one of us in here has a story. We have been through trials and tribulation. No one is exempt. And that strength that you have from those stories are the things that will push you through when difficult things happen. And I am just like all of you. Yes, yes, let me hear it. Yes, yes, yes.
And so the inspiration, I got like 2 pages of notes from her. Biggest takeaway, you don't quit.
Her message, it just really hit me here at home. So I have a lot of respect for her, and I want to just thank her a lot for being here with us today.
I'm just blown away. Everything she said, blown away.
So it was amazing. I appreciated her time, for sure.
I have a lot of respect for her, and I want to just thank her a lot for being here with us today.
And when she said that, it made me cry because right now is a time to fight.
Hey, did Chaunte now rock the stage?
Hey, let's go. Wow.
Chaunte Lowe was the guest speaker. Killed it, really. That good? How good? Really? Really? Okay.
Even when it feels like you can't take one more step forward, resilience is a choice. It's a muscle that you develop each and every day, and you have a solid support system here that is supporting you. That's my time. Thank you for joining me on this international mission.
Hey, Chaunte, you may want to come back and see this, and you may want to keep this going a little bit longer. Thank you very much.
Oh, my word. Oh, my word. Wow.
Now, I want to take you on a little trip for a minute. Imagine witnessing a moment so monumental that it completely alters the entire trajectory of your life. Well, that happened to me when I was 4 years old. I was watching the Olympics for the very first time, and I see this woman front and center on my screen. How many of you guys know who FloJo is? Yes. So I see FloJo, and she's standing up behind her block. She has this long, gorgeous hair, and the muscles in her legs allow me to see for the first time that strength is gorgeous. She stares at the finish line, lines up in her blocks, the gun sounds, poof. She dashes out the back and crosses the finish line in a time of 10.62 seconds. It was a new Olympic record. She captured gold, then they led her to a podium, they put a medal around her neck, and then they played the national anthem for the entire world to hear. At that moment, I was hooked. I was like, Mommy, what's it gonna take to become an Olympian? She said, hard work and perseverance. Okay, I was 4 years old. I was not trying to hear that, so I go to the second wisest person I knew. That was my sister. She was 6. And I said, sis, I saw this lady on the TV. She had this really long hair. They put a gold medal around her neck. Like, what do I have to do to be faster? She was kind of a jerk. She said, I know what will make you faster. Why don't you eat dirt? So I have perseverance on this hand. I have dirt in the other. One's gonna take a long time. The other's immediate gratification. So I reach down, eat the dirt, and I'm running around the parking lot. I'm like, yes, I'm fast. I'm this FloJo lady. But as time went on, I learned that it was my mother's advice that would prove, or it was my mother's advice that I would need to listen to. I quickly discovered that perseverance meant no matter how hard or how difficult, you never give up on your goal. We experienced poverty, displacement, homelessness, but through it all, I held on to my goals and I held on to my faith because deep down, I knew it was athletics that was going to get me out of this situation. Now I had a little bit of reprieve from my life. I had a grandmother who would come to my house and she would take me away for these fantastic field trips. And one time she took me on a field trip to a football game. And at this football game, it was a senior night, and they lined all the athletes up across the infield. And they say, this person's going to college for a full scholarship for this and that. I'm like, wow, like what is this? And my grandma knew we were struggling at home, and she said, you know what? The life that you're living now does not necessarily have to be the life you live when you grow up. You can get a scholarship, and if you get your education, you can change your entire life. Now, I listened to my grandma. She was a 6-foot-tall, big woman who carried a big stick in her bag, and she drove around in this long stretch Cadillac. Now, how many of you guys know who Medea is? I feel like Tyler Perry owes me royalties because I promise you he made that character after my grandmother. But the real gem was her perseverance. When she was in high school, and she used to play basketball, and when she was 16, she found out she was expecting her first child. Soon after that, she became married and had 5 more children. Now, even though she was an athlete, her real dream had nothing to do with athletics, but her heart instead was singing on the stage of Carnegie Hall. But by the age of 45, it didn't happen. And she easily could have given up, this hairstylist, mother of 6, but instead she dared to be heard. And when she was invited to sing, she jumped at the opportunity. Now, one time she was asked if she would sing the Battle Hymn of the Republic at a fundraiser. And this young senator walks up to her and he says, that is the most beautiful voice that I have ever heard. And he said, if I become president, I'm going to have you sing the national anthem at my inauguration. That young senator was Ronald Reagan. And in 1981, my grandmother stood in front of the nation and dared to allow her voice to be heard. And she sang the national anthem for the entire world to hear. Now, this 45-year-old mother of 6 could have easily said, this shouldn't happen to me. It's too late. It's not my choice. It's not my, I'm sorry, excuse me. She dared to occupy spaces that traditionally didn't belong, and the results were glorious. Now, she may not have had the opportunity to sing at Carnegie Hall, but she had something greater. She was an example for her children and for generations to come, and she inspired me so profoundly. Now, these two women, completely different, impacted my life in extremely different ways. One allowed herself to be heard, and the other by allowing herself to be seen. But the lessons that I learned from watching them, I will never forget for the rest of my life. Now, throughout today, I'm going to teach you 3 things that helped me get through some of the most difficult moments of my life. I'm going to teach you how to find resilience in the face of unbelievable adversity. I'm going to teach you how to overcome burnout and fatigue, and I'm going to show you how to overcome setbacks when they come into your life. But before we do that, I want all of you to get comfortable. We're going to shake off some of that after lunch fatigue, and we're going to do an ab workout, the most grueling, hardest ab workout of your entire life. You guys ready? All right, I'm just playing. I saw fear in the eyes of everybody at this table. Now, if some of you guys were excited about that, take out your phones. This is my ab workout. The ab workout that I use to get those abs. If you want it, you can have it. This is the first time I have ever shared it in public, but if you want it, you can have it. 3, 2, R-I-O, Rio. All right. Today, we're going to do something much easier. All I want you to do is look at the person next to you, and I want you to flash them your toothiest smile. All right, now here, look. We're all friends here, so if they have food in their teeth, please let them know. But I'm so excited to share with you today, and my time here would not have been possible without the Mars Pet Care leadership team, the Women of Mars, and Jamie Marshall and Cherish Kelly and Blake Fisher. So could you guys please give them a warm round of applause? Thank you so much for inviting me to be here tonight. Okay, so let's get back to my story. So spoiler alert, I made it to college, and my sophomore year in college, I had my first opportunity to try out for the Olympics. So it's 2004, and I'm competing at the Olympic trials. Now, this should have not been as nerve-wracking as it is, except for I am lined up against the nation's best. I mean, women who were paid to be there, Olympians, past Olympians, American record holders, and so they line up all of the athletes in the infield. And then they say your accolades one by one. Now, I was kind of embarrassed. I was wearing a baggy uniform. I had my hair tilted off to the side. One eye was closed because the sun was flashing in my face. You don't believe me? I have proof. And so I'm lined up, and they start saying the women's accolades. They say, Amy Acuff, American record holder representing the Olympics in 19... They're saying all this stuff, and the crowd goes wild. Yeah, go Amy! And so I'm getting nervous, like, oh my gosh, this is going to be so embarrassing. I have no accolades. And so then they introduce my training partner. They say, Tisha Waller, American indoor record holder in the women's high jump, blah, 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 representing Nike. And then the crowd goes wild. Yeah, and you hear this woman, that's my baby. I'm pretty sure that was her mom. And then they introduced me. Chaunte Howard, yes, a high jumper who changes her last name to Lowe. It was a whole complex. It literally took me 3 years after I got married to change my last name. Don't talk to my husband about it. He's really upset. But then they introduce me and they say, Chaunte Lowe, NCAA. And then I get the most pitiful, sad clap that anybody could get. Oh, yay, poor baby. She's about to get beat so bad. But I stood at my mark, just as I had seen FloJo do all those years before. And I leaned back, and I powered forward, boom, 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 boom. And then I jumped. Now I'm standing in the air for effect because this is how long I felt like I was in the air above the bar. And then I jumped again and again and again and again, clearing bar after bar after bar after bar, until there were just 3 women standing. I had done it. I had made my first Olympic team. But this was just the quiet before the storm. How many of you guys have ever felt like that? Like things were going good, things were going way too good, something really, really bad is about to happen. Yeah, some of us feel like that right now, right? We're meeting in person, I'm seeing people that I've never seen before, that worked with me for months, there's something bad about to happen. Well, the next couple of years for me went by in whirlwind speed. I got married, I signed a professional contract with Nike, I traveled the entire world, I had 32 different stamps in my passport, I was still in school, and to top it all off, I found out that I was just about to have my first child. How many of you guys are exhausted just thinking about that? I was exhausted too. I was burnt out, I was tired, I was overwhelmed for training for 16 straight years, giving 1,000%, obsessing over my grades in class, and I just knew that I couldn't take one extra step. Now I was struggling just to stay awake in class, and I found myself excelling on the track, but I was dying in the classroom. How many of you guys have ever felt like that? Like you're overwhelmed, on the edge of burnout, and you're juggling way too many hats, and you feel like if you just don't put something down, your whole world's gonna come crashing down. How many of you guys feel like that right now? You don't have to say anything, I know some of you. But that's exactly how I felt. Now, I'm not gonna keep you waiting on pins and needles. Spoiler alert, I made it through. He did say 4-time Olympian. But whether I made it is not the question. That's not what's gonna help you today. What's gonna help you is how. How did I do it? How did I make it through the most difficult time in my life to get to the point where I'm here right now? A 4-time Olympian, cancer survivor that went through the most difficult situation and still made it out. So I'm gonna tell you how I did it. The first thing that I did is I made my voice heard. So I go to my coach's office and I say, look, we're gonna have to have a meeting. I just signed this real big deal with Nike. I make $30,000 a 4-year contract. I'm rich. So I think I'm gonna quit school. And my coach sat me down and he said, look, Chaunte, I understand that you're tired, you're overwhelmed, and you're wanting to quit school, but I'm gonna tell you a little bit of a story. I was just like you. And when I was in college, I had the opportunity to go professional, and I took it. I jumped at the chance. But then I was part of the 1980 Olympic team that boycotted. I made the team, and I never had the opportunity to go and compete for my country. Soon after a while, the endorsement deal stopped, and I found myself without a job. I had to return to school. I cannot allow that to happen to you. So after letting him know what I needed, my coach and I decided, like, no, we're going to stay in school. So sticking to my commitment to stay to school, the next thing that I had to do is I had to schedule my task by importance and priority. And this is the biggest and most important thing. I scheduled my task micro, intermediate, and macro. And the most pressing thing that I needed to do is I needed to finish school. I had to figure out a way to graduate while pregnant and training for my second Olympic Games. The second thing I had to do is after I had that baby, I had to figure out a way to get back in shape. And the final thing is I was gonna have to go through that grueling process again and go to the Olympic trials. So my coach said, look, girl, this is what we're gonna do. The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take the biggest thing off of your plate. Don't worry about trying to train for the Olympics while you're also trying to finish school. You finish school first. So I had 9 months and I had 49 credit hours. How many of you guys know that's crazy? I had to go get special permission to take additional coursework, and I almost made it all the way to finals, and then the day of finals, my daughter decided to arrive. But we made it through that. The second thing that we had to do is when we came back to training, I realized that my ankles were weak. My legs weren't strong. I didn't understand this body that I was in, and I was like, I can't do it. And my coach said, look, we're gonna focus on the meat and the potatoes. So what that means is we're not gonna try to focus on the little extra things. We're not gonna do hurdles. We're not gonna do this. We're not gonna do sprinting. We're gonna focus on running jumping and jumping over a bar. And we did the meat and the potatoes. We had a short period of time. And to you, what this means is sometimes we're juggling several additional hats that are making us feel overwhelmed, when the truth is we have a goal that we're trying to get to, and these extra little things might be taking us away from that. So when you become laser focused on your goal, then it makes it easier for you to get there because you don't have the distraction of these extra things. And so the final thing that my coach told me is, come to my office every week. Once you have this baby, I want you to get into a groove, get into a new schedule, and I want you to prioritize your day and segment your day based on your energy level. So I was nursing this child all night. She was greedy, and she still is. And so I was nursing her all night, and I realized that the time that I had the most energy was actually at 4:30 in the morning. And my coach changed my training time from 2 in the afternoon and gave me the flexibility to train at 4:30 in the morning. And so what this means to you guys here is when you have tasks, you have things that you could do, if you're able to move it around, when you're most efficient, when you have the most energy, I would recommend trying to do that. And this number 2 is probably the most important step, because this is the thing that I use day in and day out, and it stuck with me for the rest of my life. Imagine witnessing a moment so monumental that it completely changes the entire trajectory of your life. Well, that happened to me when I was 4 years old. I was watching the Olympics for the very first time, and front and center on my screen, I see this woman by the name of FloJo. She has this long, gorgeous hair and these radiant nails that shone red, white, and blue. She stood up behind her starting block, stared at the finish line, and propelled down the track towards Olympic glory. When she crossed the finish line, she had just broken the Olympic record in 10.62 seconds, and she was led to an Olympic podium where they put a gold medal around her neck, and then they played the United States national anthem for the entire world to hear. At that moment, I was hooked. I knew that I wanted Olympic glory just like her. So I go to my mom and I say, "Mom, what's it gonna take for me to be like this FloJo lady?" And she said, "Hard work, perseverance." I said I was 4, right? Did she remember I was 4? But as time went on, it was my mom who was right. We lived in a type of environment where there was poverty, homelessness, and displacement. And I learned through those times that perseverance meant no matter how hard or how long, you never give up. I held on to my faith in athletics because I knew that that was truly the only way I was going to break this cycle of poverty in my life. I like to say that my Olympic training started when I was in high school. But it was my junior year in high school when our team was preparing to go to the national championships, and one of our relay team members got injured. Now, my coach had this athlete slated to run on the 4x1, the 4x2, and the 4x4. So I knew that I had to step up. I knew that I had to be there for my team. And I knew that you cannot run a 3-man relay or a 4-man relay with just 3 athletes. So I stepped in. Now I'm watching my team. They're handing the baton from one athlete to the next, and I see it getting closer to me, and I'm kind of scared, but I stand there, and my teammate comes towards me, and she hands me the baton, and she says, "Go!" And I felt a source of power and a source of fuel. I was able to run faster than my fitness. See, I had left sprinting a long time ago. I was singularly focused only on the high jump, and I was not ready to run a relay, but I tapped into this unimaginable strength. At that competition, I was slated to only win 1 national title, but I ended up walking away with 4. Yeah, you guys can call me Thanos. 2 years later, I had my first opportunity to try out for the Olympic trials. I achieved my goal of getting a college scholarship. And so I'm at the Olympic trials. I am lined up against the nation's best high jumpers, many of them who had already been Olympians. And so I stand at my mark like I had seen Flojo do so many years before. I leaned back and I barreled towards the bar. And I jumped again and again and again and again. And I cleared bar after bar after bar until there were only 3 women standing. I had made my first Olympic team. I traveled to Athens, Greece, the Olympic Games where they were talking about the wild street dogs. And while everybody was talking about the wild street dogs, I was struggling to clear the bar. I crashed and I burned. Failing to get an Olympic medal, I didn't even make it out of the final. And then I persevered, like my mom had taught me so many years before. And in Beijing in 2008, I once again got to represent Team USA in the bird's nest, where everybody was clamoring about this guy named Usain Bolt who was breaking 3 world records. I was sitting there, weaning a nursing 1-year-old, jumping in the rain, trying my best, but only coming away with 6th place. And yet I persevered. And then I went to London in 2012, where the Queen of England had a stunt double parachute out of a helicopter. And I went and competed, and yet again, short of the medal stand. In 2016, I was able to compete in the Rio Olympic Games. Now, this was the most dramatic of all my Olympic Games. I made it past the prelims, I got to the final, and I get to the point where there are only 4 women left in the competition. I'm the last jumper of the competition, and every other woman failed all 3 of their attempts. So it was my turn. So once again, I leaned back. Now let me tell you, if I clear this bar, I am an Olympic gold medalist. But if I miss it, I am the dreaded first place loser, which is 4th place to all Olympians. So I lean back and I power towards the bar just like Flojo, just like I had done that first Olympic trials. And I clear my head, my shoulders, my back, my bum, my hamstrings, my calves, and I peek up just for a little bit of a second to see if the bar is still standing. And to my amazement, yes, it's still there. And so I celebrate in the air just a little bit. And then it was a mistake. I knocked the bar off with my heel, and it wiggled and wobbled, and one side fell, and then the other. I was devastated. 28 years of hard work amounted to nothing. I went home, and while I was a mother of 3 amazing children, I had a successful marriage. I had won world championships. I was the 2-time American record holder. I failed to get an Olympic medal after 4 tries, and I felt like such a failure. So I went home, and I did what most of us would do. I called my old friends that I hadn't spoken to in 16 years, Ben and Jerry. And so I'm online shopping for bigger pants, eating gallon after gallon, and then my messages on my phone start ringing. Congratulations, Olympic medalist. Like, what are you talking about? It wasn't until my phone rang that I understood what had happened. When I had a nursing 1-year-old at home, 8 years earlier at the Olympic Games in Beijing, it was determined that 3 women that finished in front of me had actually cheated, and the medal would be reallocated to me. Yeah. I had this amazing ceremony where I went to an amphitheater in Beverly Hills, and they took this medal and they gave it to my 3-year-old son, who gave it to my 5-year-old daughter, who gave it to my 9-year-old daughter, who gave it to my husband, who gave it to Mr. Probes, who put it around my neck. And I was so happy, but something was missing. Now, I don't want to take away from this moment, but what I thought would be experienced, like the fireworks that I saw at Walt Disney World just driving down the highway, felt more like that drunk uncle in a Speedo on the 4th of July twirling with rollerblades and sparklers in each hand. And so I decided that I was going to do what the next logical step, and I was going to go and enter the workforce. And so I ended up getting a job at a Fortune 100 company as a financial consultant. And I learned that Self-help and self-care was a huge part of my life. I had to prioritize it. So in addition to going on fishing trips like this with my family, I started doing self-breast exams. Now, for 2 years, these exams were uneventful, but one time, I found this itsy-bitsy tiny rice-sized lump. I went to the doctor, and the doctor told me not to worry about it. It's just a lymph node. But a year later, that lump had tripled in size. So I went back, and this time, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Now, I had an important decision to make. Was I going to allow this diagnosis to take me under, or was I going to fight? I'm kind of petty. You guys know I will train for 4 years to jump over a bar for 2 hours. So of course, I decided to fight. They say when you are facing a life or death situation, it is your life that flashes before your eyes. But in my case, it wasn't my life that flashed before my eyes. It was the lives of my children and my husband without me. And I could not live with that. I went into my garage and I began recording. I grabbed my phone and I said, this is not the message that I thought I'd be recording today. I thought that I'd be telling you that I might be going for my 5th Olympic Games, but instead I'm telling you that I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Please do your self-breast exams. Because I found it early, it was treatable, and I had a lot of options. And I stopped recording, and I posted it online. But then I started to dive deep and understand what this really meant. I learned that 1 in 8 women in their lifetime in the US will be diagnosed with breast cancer, and that men get breast cancer. And I knew that I had to do something. I would use my platform to galvanize women all over the world, to help them understand that they have to advocate for themselves. But what was my platform? I was a number cruncher. And then I realized exactly what I had to do. I had to dive back into the Olympic ring, and I had to train for my 5th Olympic Games so that I could use the media conglomerate that the Olympic Games are and bring awareness to breast cancer. My treatment will require a double mastectomy and months of chemotherapy. I needed to use this platform to bring attention to this disease. And I started to feel the responsibility, not just for myself, but for your family, for your mother, for your sons, for your daughters, for your parents, and for what it might mean to you if you were facing this diagnosis. And then I began to feel energized, just as I did just one time before. When I was running that relay and they handed me that baton, I felt strength, unimaginable strength that I didn't even know was there. And so after getting the blessing of my doctors, I began to train through chemotherapy. I pushed through the nausea, the vomiting, the hair loss, the rashes in unimaginable places, the shedding fingernails. I pushed through it all. And some days, my training would just be walking with a walker. Sometimes it would just be getting out of bed. But other days, I had the energy to do stadium runs, to lift weights, to sprint. I felt the power and energy that came with carrying all of you on my back. This was the day that I decided that I no longer wanted to sit and watch my hair slide off of my scalp. I decided that it was time to let go of the old Chaunte and embrace the new. Everything was going according to plan. I was training well, I was in the right position, I knew that I was ready, and there was nothing that was going to stop me from getting back to that Olympic stage. COVID-19 hit my family. Everyone in my house was diagnosed just when vaccinations were becoming widely available to everybody. And I tried to train, but my lungs could just not take the thrashing. And for the first time in my life, I failed to qualify for the Olympic trials. And so as I'm watching all of the media that I had recorded months before, I see a news anchor say, "Normally we go to the Olympics for stories of inspiration, but Chaunte Lowe didn't even have to go to the Olympics to inspire us all." I hope that he was right. I was watching the opening ceremonies for the first time from my house with my kids instead of in the infield with my team. When the opening ceremonies came on, they show this video called What Agnes Saw. It was a media documentary of what Hungarian gymnast Agnes Coletti saw during her 100 years of life. And in between legends like Jesse Owens and Simone Biles was me. And it wasn't just me figuratively, it was me jumping over the bar, that last jump in Rio. And my kids looked at me and they said, "Mommy, you made it to the Olympics." I cried so deeply because I knew they were right. In a moment that should have felt like a massive failure, a time where I failed to make it back to the Olympic Games, I felt a sense of pride. I captured that elusive feeling that I thought that I was going to feel so many years ago from getting that Olympic medal. I felt the strength of carrying a community on my back and knowing that I was one part of a bigger picture. When I reflect over the last 2 years, I know that sharing my story in my most vulnerable moment was the key. It wasn't a moment where I had perfect FloJo nails. I didn't have perfect FloJo hair. I realized that who I was before cancer was transfixed on wanting to beat everyone. I needed everybody to know my name. I wanted them to know I was great. But the me who emerged from that cancer journey was one that understood that the fight of my life was not just for myself, that there's a tremendous amount of pride fighting for everyone else, and that when children see my story and they realize that the best thing that athletics can do for us is to lift us up, and that with hard work, determination, and grit, you can get out of difficult situations. But that is just the beginning. When we step back and realize that we are stronger together and we take up the plight of our brothers and sisters, we are truly understanding the meaning of life. In a time when we are inundated with self-help and selfies and self-this and self-that, we are missing out on a huge opportunity to fight for one another, to tap into an infinite source of strength and power that will propel us all. I just want you to understand that when we fight for one another, we're fighting for a greater cause that has a deeper fulfillment that will change the world. The me that emerged from the fight of my life understands this. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for allowing me to be that for you.